Good morning and welcome. Let's break that word down relative to why we're here this morning. Let's be well, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And do come join us for the community and support on this journey. Welcome. While all are welcome, this morning I invite us to focus on the joy and support those who come regularly bring. Since I have the microphone and 2 minutes of floor time, I'm taking the liberty of telling you a welcoming story. Rose Lee is not only the organizer of today's event, she's also my next door neighbor. A recent morning, she came over with her cup of coffee and her mullings about not church. Rose came to Baja 4 years ago after 8 years in Thailand, knowing only her sister, Rita. So we have Rosa Rita. Rose was realizing that she has built her community here with not church regulars and semi-regulars. She invited me to do this morning's welcome because it was me who introduced her to Not Church back when we were doing Not Church North. I chuckled and said, if we let her, a refugee, in, it's true, all are welcome. Now I want to give you 3 reasons why I am so grateful that you welcomed Rose. And then I invite you to mull 3 things or more that only you can bring to our Not Church family. Here goes. In her early adulthood, Rose's arthritis was so bad that she was told to expect to spend her adult years in a wheelchair. I think of that when I visit her inspiring living room, dining room next door, because it's our gentle yoga Qigong studio. As part of her healing journey, Rose attended a 2-week Tony Robbins event in Hawaii, where she teamed with a man who'd just written a book. He explained prana yoga to her during walks on the beach, prana energy to her during walks on the beach. She did a body scan on him and learned and noted accurately the pain and inflammation in his elbow. When she returned home, she'd tell friends that she'd walked and worked with Deepak Chopra. Back then, nobody recognized the name. While teaching in Thailand those 8 years, Rose took advantage of school holidays to attend meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and Qigong classes around the world, from Mongolia to South Africa. She spent many weeks at plum villages, and in 2013, she decided that she wanted to spend 2 months of the following year in the south of France with Thich Nhat Hanh as her in-person teacher. She didn't realize then, consciously, that those would be the last classes he would teach before he had his stroke. So thank you so much for welcoming Rose to Not Church 4 years ago. I have benefited so much. And I end by welcoming you and the unique experiences that only you can bring to our Not Church family. Welcome.
Thank you, Marilyn. And now Carmen will lead us in the meditation.
Good morning, everybody. Oops. Okay. Oh my gosh. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased that, Rose asked me to do the meditation, and I haven't done it in forever. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to guide you in a little introduction, and then we are going to take a few minutes of silence to meditate a little bit on what I'm going to introduce you to. So take a comfortable position and just relax. If you feel comfortable also, you can close your eyes and take a deep breath in, hold it a little bit, and let it release. As you do, you feel this wellness, this peacefulness in your body. Let's do another deep breath in, and we hold it and release it. Now we're in a place that we're centering ourselves with the universe, with divine spirit, the creator of life. And we know we are alive because we're here. And this is wonderful to know. And we thank the universe for this life that has brought us to where we are right now. We thank the universe for all the things that enrich our lives and that make us feel happy and peaceful. And we also thank life for those experiences that have been a challenge in our lives and that had made us grow. Perhaps at the moment of these situations, these challenging life, we were not understanding what was happening. Why? We probably were in that stages. Why me? Why is this happening? Eventually, I believe that we all got to a point where we had to work at it. It wasn't free, but we overcame our challenge and we realized that we had to go through that to grow and to be better. Simply that. And we thank for life, for our families, for our friends, for all the abundance that enrich it. Sometimes might not be monetary, but we have everything we need. Every day we wake up and we get out of bed and we thank life for what we have that make us our lives comfortable and possible. So we thank for those obvious things, our families, our pets, our homes, our pensions, for those of us who are on pensions. We thank life for all the goodness. However, there is something in our life that we just take for granted and we hardly ever acknowledge. So I'm going to invite you to bring to mind something in your life that you don't realize right now that you have, something that has made a difference, or something simple that, again, you just take for granted every day. So let us keep silence and think about this, whatever it is, and thank the universe, thank life for this gift that has been ignored, but yet is there. Okay, you may open your eyes, and thank you for participating. Amen.
Thank you, Carmen. And now I'm going to have Anna introduce our speaker.
Oh, you're muted, Anna.
Anna, can you unmute?
You'll be able to hear my husband over here laughing at me. Oh, well, I was thanking you, Rose, and Marilyn and Carmen. I really enjoyed your talks. So when, let me see, where are my notes? When Rose and Beatrice asked me to introduce Cynthia and I put our heads together and came up with some notes that I'm going to read to you. Long time and much beloved friends, since our shared experience as University of Santa Monica students, Cynthia and I have been keeping each other inspired for many years, I think more than 20 years, actually. Every conversation nurturing new ways to interface with our unique and interesting orbits, furthering our capacity to serve our communities while reinventing ourselves. Now, stewarding creative skills acquired during her career in costume production and educational publishing, Cynthia accesses professional training, including a master's degree from USM, certifications from the Institute for Next Level Leadership, and other coaching programs to serve clients who are seeking to find their inner X factor, the magical ingredient that gives momentum to their unique capacity to manifest and serve using their own miraculous gifts and talents. Cynthia recently shared a wonderful remembrance which occurred while she was still working in costumes. On a movie set in Vancouver, a friendship was formed with one of the leading actresses, herself a Canada native who spent formative career time in Vancouver, and there made a wonderful friend who built a career using his spiritual and athletic gifts and had become a highly regarded Tai Chi master. Cynthia and her two Canadian friends spent some rare and wonderful offset free time hours together. As the movie shoot concluded, the actress shared an observation made by the Tai Chi master of Cynthia, saying, while some seek for wisdom-making passages to India, others will go to Cynthia for a cup of coffee, and that will be enough. And I can attest to that. A chat with Cynthia. I am aware that Cynthia now regards this compliment as a gift from someone attuning to the X factor she wasn't yet valuing in herself, forecasting her serving now as a professional coach. And I introduce you to Cynthia Hamilton, professional life and transformational coach. Thank you, Cynthia.
Well, Anna, Rose, and Beatrice, thank you all for making a wonderful, hospitable moment now with all of you. And I too would like to thank Marilyn and Carmen. Somehow, both of you attuned to just the energy of gratitude. And Carmen, I don't know how you knew this. This must be your X factor, but your attunement to the idea of each of us having a forgotten gift is thematically so appropriate, because I think the X factor, which is kind of a trendy description for so many miraculous synchronistic things that sometimes we overlook inside of ourselves and our beingness and our ability to serve in the world. And so that is really the heart of what I'm intending this to be, is just a little opportunity to give gratitude to ourselves, to each of you, and to what you do in the world that brings your miraculous gifts. So I'm going to share at some point a little bit more about how I cultivated and became aware of my X factors, but there was quite a bit of time that I was oblivious to all of it. And what got me thinking about the X Factor was not the TV show that, you know, some or none of you have ever watched, but I think there is a TV show, I've never seen it, but it talks about an X Factor. And what brought that into my mind last year was the experience of watching two programs that were the child of one of my dear friends was participating in a musical theater after school program. And last December, I went to their first offering of the year, which was Oklahoma. And knowing it was an amateur performance, I kind of reduced my expectations and I had a wonderful time. But between all of us, it was perfectly terrible. I mean, these kids had trouble remembering their lines. They couldn't quite get the choreography. There was a lot of looking down at their feet and checking to see who was out of step. And there was a soundtrack to the for their singing, and most of it was quite off key. And they couldn't remember the words. I mean, I had a great time, but it wasn't a great performance. So cut to last June, and my friend invited me to see her daughter again. And this time it was Hamilton, the rock, rap, opera, Broadway, monolithic, amazing show. Now I've never seen it. So once again, I sat in my seat, lowered my expectations, and a miracle occurred because the kids who were, I recognized many of the same faces, they were amazing. I mean, really astonishing. I don't know if any of you have seen Hamilton. I'd heard about it, but what it actually turned out to be was so much more challenging and nuanced and creative than I had ever anticipated. And once the music started, it was nonstop. It was relentless. It was a freight train. And these kids got every word, every nuanced choreographic move. And the choreography was almost the scenery. So it was quite important. They all played different parts. And some of them were the most improbable casting you could imagine. Like they had a 7th grade girl play George Washington. And believe it or not, when I tell you, this performance was perfectly credible. She had a gravity about her, 7th grade, but she pulled it off and we were absolutely entranced. And I mentioned my friend's daughter who played Hamilton's son who died. Sorry for sharing that part of the plot, but it's history. And anyway, her performance was wonderful and we cried and we gave them all a standing ovation. So afterwards, I thought about this whole phenomenon. I knew it was a phenomenon. And then I thought to myself, oh, I see, this is the X factor. And so obviously these kids were much better rehearsed, but they must have identified with the performance. There was something about it that really motivated them to transcend a set point in consciousness, which allowed them to exceed any level of performance they had previously executed. So this really got me thinking, and I wrote an essay about it, and And in considering that, I started to think more about my own X factors that I've missed over the years. And so right now, I'm going to challenge each of you. Carmen has wonderfully set us up for this a little bit, but I'm going to ask that each of you enter into our conversation space, which is by virtue of being Zoom somewhat limited. However, what I'm inviting you to do, and it's based on a convention that's happening in coaching now, using the work of a lovely and amazing coach who wrote a book called Time to Think. And what it is just a way of bringing our energy and our attunement into the room. And what we're going to do now is go around the gallery, and Anna will be calling on each one of you. And I invite you to say your name and one word that comes forward for you that is perhaps an X factor quality that you may overlook. It's Gay Hendricks, a wonderful psychologist who partners with his wife, Catherine. They call an X factor your zone of genius. It might have a flavor of your life mission. And often it shows up like it did for me with the cup of coffee observation about me. It can show up as a compliment from a friend. And so I'm going to invite you to just attune and go for it with committing to a word that might be some essence part of you that you recognize as an abiding keynote of all the gifts that you've ever expressed this lifetime, that galvanates and motivates you and brings you utter joy and purpose to your beingness. So I'm going to begin. My name is Cynthia, and healer is my X factor. Anna?
My name is Anna, and vision is my X factor. And Rose, can we call on you to unmute and share yours in one word?
My name is Rose. My X factor, adventurous.
Marilyn, can you unmute and tell us yours?
I'm Marilyn, and mine is finding interesting links between people.
Shall I ask you?
Oh, okay.
I don't have to unmute this one.
All right. I'm never unmuted. I'm Doug, and mine is authentic.
Nice.
What?
Beatrice, would you unmute?
Yes. My name is Beatrice and mine is happiness.
Nice. Stephanie, would you unmute, please?
My name is Stephanie, and I think mine is bravery.
Wow. Bruce, how about you?
Yes, you want to put me on?
You're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Bruce. It would be art for me, and art for me is painting, drawing, piano, interior design.
Great,
That's me.
great, thank you. And Ellen?
Joy, but I want it to be inspiration.
Lois, how about you? Unmute, please.
I'm Lois, and several came to mind, but adventurous is the one that sticks.
Great. Ilana?
I'm Ilana, and my X factor is deep listener.
Carmelita, can you unmute?
My name is Carmen and my X factor is empathy.
Julie, would you unmute for us?
Hi, my name is Julie, and my X factor is enthusiasm.
And Lance?
I'm Lance, and my X factor is diplomacy.
Winifred?
My name is Winifred, and I am an optimist.
Is Don close by? Should we ask Don?
Yes. Oh, no, he's not. He ran
Roy?
away.
Royce, how about you?
Dawn's in the other room.
Oh, that Don.
That Dawn. Yeah.
Royce, are you unmuted?
Yeah, my name is Royce, and I would say justice.
Right. And Jan? Oh, there you are. Can you unmute for us and give us a word? Unmute, you need to unmute down on the bottom. We can't hear you.
Yeah, creativity. Creativity, yeah, okay.
Thank you. And Patricia, would you unmute?
Sure. My name is Patricia, and my X factor is equality.
And last, but certainly not least, Mary Beth.
Well, I came late to this party, but I'm Mary Beth, and my X factor is caring.
Thank you all.
Well, that was lovely. I really enjoyed hearing all the myriad gifts and talents expressed in one word, and just having your energy enter into the field here is very, very much appreciated. And so I'm going to share a little bit more of my story and how I really came to appreciate how it's really ineffable, this word, and sometimes it feels elusive. And I grew up in a suburb of Manhattan, and I had a grandmother who lived, she was a longtime New Yorker, and she exposed me to all kinds of cultural experiences. And as I grew older, I ventured into New York alone or with friends, and we went often to matinees. You could sit in a Broadway theater then and see, we saw Henry Fonda in our town. We saw Albert Finney in A Day in the Life of Joe Egg. We saw so many amazing, amazing performances, and probably the most expensive ticket was $8. So it was really part of my evolving and growing. And I was in a peer group who all went to Woodstock. So I was really rather confused by all of these interesting things I was aware of. And yet I didn't feel that my identity was really landing anywhere that would be useful in what I perceived I had to do to make a career for myself. Nevertheless, I really began to move forward in using what resources I had, and I had a Barnard College education by the time I graduated, and it took a while. Much later, I realized that the theater that I spent the most of my time there was also a theater that the wonderful writer Jean Houston talks about in her book, The Mythic Life. And I later realized that that was among many synchronicities and experiences that were leading me to have a perspective about myself that wasn't what I had been living as in my growing up. There were limitations to that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how those limiting beliefs can sometimes obscure a wonderful X factor. So I'll tell my story of being completely oblivious to my gifts and talents, which were taking me to and propelling me actually to quite a high level in my work as a costume designer. And that to me was incredible to begin with. It really became, it really arose out of the experience of being part of a department at Barnard run by a very resourceful Englishman who decided one year that I had enough taste that I could do his production of The Merry Wives of Windsor and use some costumes from the Wraith's Progress of the year before, because I could figure out how to make them look right for the characters and blah, blah, blah. That was actually the seed of my costume career right there. And so it progressed from there. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but this one little story comes forward. And it's after I actually became employed at a costume shop in New York, which was probably the premier place for having Broadway shows and big stars have their clothes made. And so I worked there, and then I was hired away from there to be part of a team that worked with a wonderful, already by then Academy Award-winning designer named Ann Roth. And she asked me to work with her and her team on a movie that had Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep as the stars. So my first movie had two big movie stars. And so when you do a movie like that, where one person is carrying a whole production, the costume people are important, but we don't have a huge amount of time with the person who's performing because they're doing other preparations. And so we had to be very efficient in creating what's called a wardrobe of changes. And the changes are every day the actor shows up in the movie is one change, or it might be a few changes if they need a change of clothes through the day of the script. So we're in this big fitting room, and I knew that my job was going to be like observing and working with Meryl to put the outfits together, but I was going to be like hanging up the clothes and getting them ready to return to the store, or putting tags on them to go out to the workroom to have alterations made. I had no expectation of really doing much except supporting her energetically. But all of a sudden, after handing Anne, you know, an accessory or a blouse or something to put an outfit together, she stood in front of me and then stepped aside and ushered me next to Meryl Streep, for whom I proceeded to make outfits for this movie. And now that I think about that experience, I realized that I had been completely unaware that in that context, my X factor was being able to do for Anne what a younger person, if I were Anne now, I would certainly hire a younger person to put outfits together that were from clothing current to the time. And that's what I did for them. It was through my seeing what was fashionable, what worked for the movie, what I could see and envisioning for the character. I kind of put the puzzle pieces together that were articles of clothing that made outfits. So that's my memory, and that's actually a memory that came forward for me while I was watching the Hamilton performance and asking myself, what opportunities did I take for granted that were part of who I am, what I see, what I bring to the world? And it was really the ability to see beauty, to see what the writer of that script had envisioned as the character that Anne and Meryl were bringing to life, that were incarnating. And I was calling forward an X factor that put all of those pieces together and made a visual representation of what had been invisible inspiration until they came together and showed up in that moment. And so that was one experience that I cherish. And I have had the experience of reinventing myself and my gifts since then a few times. So I'm inviting us right now to have a little bit more time to think about where our X factor has been serving our ability to be in the world, to serve in the world, to really bring value to our lives and to our communities. And so let's do maybe 5 minutes here of some journaling, and we'll have a few minutes afterwards to just talk about what came forward. So here are some ideas to reflect on. And you all provided wonderful words. Let's flesh them out. And then I forget who said something, but I remember the comments. Maybe it was Patricia or one of the later offerings. There was someone who said, oh, it was Ellen. I think you said something, and then you said you wished it were something else. Oh, inspiration, joy and inspiration. And I thought that's so interesting, because when it comes to appreciating our unique abilities and special skills, there are times when we unconsciously disrupt the flow of energy, positive energy that's coming toward us, that we're giving and receiving. And yet there are things that can sometimes obscure that. The compliment that we receive, that sometimes we don't even really take in or even deflect it. And then what Gay Hendricks, who I mentioned, his X factor is the zone of genius, and what he calls upper limits are sometimes the ways that the zone of genius becomes impaired, obscured, or really not resourced effectively for our just living in the fullness of who we can be. So I'm inviting you to just take a few minutes now and think about how often someone has said to you, oh, you're so good at that. And then maybe you dismissed it, or you've had the opportunity to consider, really below the activity that I'm doing, what is my unique ability? So let's mute ourselves. Let's take a little bit of time here, and we'll meet back here in 3 or 4 minutes, okay? And if that's enough time, I'm welcoming you back to the room. So we have just a few minutes to share with one another, but I'm inviting you to share an insight. We don't have a lot of time for really processing or deep sharing or really a discussion about what might be coming forward for you, but I would love to hear an insight, and in the spirit of the season that Carmen set for us, I'm also inviting you to perhaps just thank yourself and your universe for the richness of the gifts that you have been able to experience for yourself in your service to your community and to your world. So who would like to share something? You can either raise your hand or use the screen reaction to raise your hand. Ellen. And don't forget to unmute yourself. There you go.
I did. So I recognize for in the moments that we shared that it's really about co-creation, is that I really don't do anything. I'm just get to be a flow to work with source and to allow things to occur. So, and I'm grateful for that. I appreciate that. And I feel very blessed.
I love that sharing, Ellen, and it's wonderful that you brought forward that sense of co-creation, because in that partnership, everything that you do gets replenished and restored and gives you momentum to keep going. So blessings, that was lovely. And Bruce, you have something.
I do. Education, and it has to do with my failing elementary school.
Oh.
My mother was head of PTA, everything, knew the principal, and they couldn't figure out why. Dyslexia. And my grandchildren, even Ellen said, I have that. It's something you sort of outgrow to start with. And so by the time I got to away from Ohio to Little Rock, I found art, and I found great friends, and I found teachers that liked me. And I went up to sort of as high as a B. And then I came to San Diego, and I had fabulous teachers at San Diego High School. I still love them. And I made all A's.
No.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And then I went to San Diego State and San Francisco State, and I did very well. I ended up with 2 majors, 5 minors for my BA. I have a master's in fine arts and a doctorate that relates to education. I taught for 25 years. It all started out with a mess.
Hey, I think that sounds like co-creation.
Okay.
I think it's more of a miracle than a mess. And I perceive, Bruce, that you attracted the experience that transformed your whole sense of who you are and how you were, how you've served and are serving. It's really a wonderful example of how to transform. One of my favorite coaches says that one of the opportunities is to really test what limiting beliefs have been operating, lived as if they were true. And you somehow, even as a young fellow, challenged that upper limits part of you that had a real component to it. I mean, dyslexia can be so limiting, and yet in your description of how the art opened the doors to unlimited possibility is really a wonderful story, and I appreciate sharing it here. It's such a good example of what we're talking about. So thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Does anyone else want to share something? Carmen.
And Alana has her hand up.
Alana.
Oh, real quick, I'm not going to take too much time. As I was journaling a little bit of what you guide us to do, I came up, I realized that one of the other X factors that I value now is intuition.
Yes.
And I'm going to share with you that as I was thinking about what to focus on during that meditation, and I said, well, it's obvious that, we have a lot of things that we are grateful for, that they're obvious to us. But the word, the message kept coming about those gifts that we don't notice. And I guess you were sending me some sort of message to, I guess, to set up the stage for you. So I thank you for sending that. And it's something that I am realizing that I have a lot of my family tell me all the time, oh yeah, you knew that was coming. So I realize that it is one of my X factors that I'm grateful for. So thank you.
Well, Carmen, thank you. And that is really a wonderful example of what I'm talking about, is that just being so present and attuning, you can actually manifest value from that. There's the ineffable, intangible intuition that has a very practical value, and a good example of it. So thank you. And Alana, we have just a little bit more time, but I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to unmute.
Unmute, yes.
Yes, of course. How could I have forgotten? Deep listener is the X factor that came up for me today. And I want to share briefly about listening inwards. About 8 years ago, I was scheduled to go to a war zone in the Middle East to teach creative writing and to work on a film project. In the meantime, it became so violent and ISIS was all over the place, and everybody was telling me, don't go, don't go. And all Americans and other foreigners who were going there were turned away, but I did not, because I was listening to something inside that constantly told me, you are safe, you will get there, you will bring love and joy. And I did, and it was amazing. They thought I was a ghost. They didn't believe when they saw me. And it was this listening deep inside, which was stronger than any other voice.
That is just amazing. And what a beautiful, beautiful example of serving the world with courage and really your attunement, such attunement to the purpose of your being there, that it, in my perception, a whole energy field of protection and light helped you to be present and serve in the way that you did, is just beautiful. So thank you for that. I loved hearing that. And I've loved this time with all of you so much. It's been so fun. And just so you know, I'm available to do a one-on-one coaching experience, and Rose will be sending everyone a recording of this program, and in it there will be a way for you to contact me. My email will be there. And Anna, would you share, Anna and I are cooking up something that will be kind of an extension of this little short program having to do with creating living visions and ideal scenes, and this will be early in the new year. Is there anything else, Anna, that we want to say about that? Because you and I are going to get concrete with this idea next week, I think.
Well, I just want to say that like my X factor is vision, and learning to create these living visions, this process has been so powerful for me. And I was having trouble writing one a few days ago. And of course, I reached out to Cynthia and she coached me through this process. And before we had even gotten off the Zoom, my vision had materialized. It's such a powerful thing. So yes, we're putting our heads together, and we're going to, through Tranquilo, we're going to offer a special online event with Cynthia. I think you said 3 hours probably at some point in mid-January, and we'll let everybody know. If you're not on the Tranquilo email list, you can go to tranquilobaja.com and you can add yourself to the email list so that you can get the information, or you can just let one of us know and we'll be sure that you get it. Thank you so much, Cynthia, and everybody.
Oh, yes, thank you, Anna, and blessings of Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving and lots to be grateful for.
Yes.
Thank you, Cynthia. And the recording will be on the Tranquilo website.
Okay, good to know.
Again,
Bye-bye, everyone.
thank you all. Have a beautiful Thanksgiving. And I believe this, unless anyone's got an announcement or something burning to say, we will conclude this November Not Church and see you in December.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Blessings.
Thanks,
Blessings. Excuse me. Oh my goodness.